So let's pray. Dear God, we thank you for another day of having the opportunity to serve the people in our community. Uh, Bless our guest speakers today as we learn more about being uh, and building circles of support. And thank you for your grace, mercy, and love. And may we continue to be instruments of your peace. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, a couple of housekeeping things really quick. Throughout the presentation, you can enter your comments and questions in the chat. And then at the end of the presentation, there'll be a time for questions and answers. And we hold the Learn at Lunches quarterly, and the next one will be in August. And you'll receive notice when the date is decided. And so today the presentation title is Building Circles of Support, a Trauma-Informed Approach to Preventative Care for Families. And we have two speakers. The first one is Kori Tackett, and Kori serves as the Safe Families Outreach Coordinator and Parent Cafe Coordinator with Bethany Christian Services, a role she has held for the past 3 years. In her work, Kori focuses on community outreach, church engagement, fundraising, volunteer recruitment, and training. She's deeply passionate about supporting parents who feel isolated and strives to build strong, connected community programs that help families not just survive, but thrive. Her heart for hospitality and connection drives her to create spaces where people feel seen, supported, and empowered. And then we have Claudia Taylor. Claudia is the Family Coach Coordinator for Safe Families and a trainer for resource parents throughout the county. With 17 years of experience in the foster care and mental health field, she has dedicated her career to supporting children and families. Her work includes coaching, advocacy, and providing trauma-informed training and guidance to foster resource parents, and is passionate about building strong support systems for family in need. So thank you, Kori and Claudia, and it's all yours.
All right, thank you so much for having us. I'm Kori, and I'm gonna share my screen here and get it started. Here we go. All right, and so like you said, we're from Safe Families for Children here in Fresno. Safe Families is a national organization, and our chapter here is overseen by Bethany Christian Services. And it's going to be myself and Claudia who are going to present this a little bit. I have a little short video to start off with to kind of introduce you to what Safe Families is, and then we'll jump right into it.
You need help to get through a temporary crisis, who would you call? Your mom? Your sister? A family friend? A lot of us have people we can call in an emergency to look after our kids for a few days, a weekend, maybe more. But a lot more families than you think don't have anybody they can call. And in a crisis, that adds stress on top of stress. Safe Families helps parents who need support or a safe place for their kids to stay, so they can secure stable housing, have surgery, go get well in rehab, finish school, and more. It creates space for them to take some short-term action now that will put their family on a more stable, long-term path for the future.
I was currently experiencing homelessness. Thankfully, I had a car, but still, I wouldn't want my son to have to sleep in a car. I don't think any mother would want their child to sleep in a car. At the time, I didn't have any family or friends that could help me or help with my situation. And I reached out and I said, hey, is there any way that you guys can help? And they said, yeah, we have this program called Safe Families. I was feeling very scared. I was feeling hopeless. I definitely feel like once Kristen informed me that she could have a hosting family as soon as the next day, I felt relieved. Knowing that help was on the way was so relieving. And it has really opened my eyes to just how amazing people can really be.
Coming from where I come from, I don't really have a lot of family that will make you feel comfortable and make you feel that your children are safe with them. And so they make me completely comfortable where I don't really have to worry about my children being in harm's way. And so I'm able to know that he's having fun, and it makes me just feel really good, you know, to have that support around me.
Before I met the Harrisons, I didn't think I was ready to be a mother. I was scared. I didn't have no place to go. I was jumping from couch to couch, and I didn't want to be in a situation where I would have a home for my child, my newborn child. And I was afraid that DCYF would step in because I was bouncing from couch to couch, trying to find a place for me, my soon to be born child.
Rooted in faith, Safe Families is fueled by radical hospitality, disruptive generosity, and intentional compassion. Radical hospitality, because this isn't a program. It's a ministry that runs on volunteers who decided this is how we want to love our neighbors, by being safe for someone who needs safety, by being stability, a home base, even a family when someone needs it most. Disruptive generosity, because helping this way means opening the four walls of your home, maybe even opening your idea of who is part of your family. Giving this way changes lives, including yours. And intentional compassion, because you've got to love like you mean it. You got to want to see the world through someone else's eyes, walk around their shoes, knowing parents want for their kids the same things you want for yours. So how can we get there together?
All right, that's a quick intro into our program, and wanted to share it just that has a little bit of intro to the families that we work with and the situations they're kind of going through, and hearing from a parent's point of view of what it's like to be in the Safe Families program. But who are we? We are Safe Families for Children, a program within Bethany Christian Services here in Fresno. And Safe Families provides supportive community and resources for parents so that they can strive and overcome poverty, homelessness, medical issues, job loss, and other obstacles. We're a faith-based organization, and we really work with churches in our community to be equipped to work with families who have experienced crisis or traumas. And so we're going to go over that a little bit on how we work with organizations, parents, and churches in our community to build up volunteers. And so I'm going to kick it over to Claudia, and she's going to go a little bit over how we work with parents and organizations.
Oh, you can just go to the next slide.
Everyone enjoy Claudia's picture.
Okay, hi everyone. So that was a really good video for us to show just some examples of the services and support that we provide for our families, which is actually one of the reasons our founder started Safe Families for Children. Is he was also working in the system and was seeing these families who maybe, you know, were able to provide for their families and their kids, and they had a job but had lost their home and ended up in the system. And so he kind of thought of like, what are the things that could have been put in place before that would have helped and supported these families so they didn't end up in the system? Because we know that, you know, it is hard for our kids to be removed, and also even harder sometimes to get them back. And so as he interacted with these families, he thought there has to be something that the church can do where we can come along families and support them and love them so that we don't end up here. And so the need for preventative care was one of the things that came up for him. Some of the struggles, the most common struggles we see with our families here in Fresno is poverty, housing insecurity, and one of the biggest ones is lack of family support. And that could be from having to move into a town or city that they are not from and not knowing anyone, or even maybe they have family or friends, but they are just not someone that they can identify as safe for themselves or for their kids, or maybe they're creating boundaries to keep their family safe. And so they don't have anyone to really turn to in times of crisis or need. The Surgeon General and a committee put out a report last year where they identified, the report is called Parents Under Pressure, and they looked at the stress of parents and how it affected their mental health, and then how that then carried on and affected the children in their home. And so some of the things that they found in talking to parents was that 41% of parents say the most days they are so stressed they can't function, and 48% say that most days their stress is completely overwhelming. And of those parents, 65 of them were parents and guardians, and 76 were single parents, and they had experienced loneliness. So these are families who don't have supports. They are having to deal with the stress within themselves, and maybe they just don't know the resources in their communities. They don't have the people within their own circle that they can turn to in those moments. And so when we see a lot of that happening within families, that's when we see the neglect and the abuse start to happen. And so we want to be able to step in before that abuse starts to happen, and provide them with their own circle of support. We also want to be able to have a lower rate of children going into the system. We want to make sure that we are providing them with the resources that they're needing. And when we come in, we want to be a part of their resources, but we don't want to be their only resource. We want to be able to expand that for them. Next slide. Okay, so our objective for Safe Families: child abuse prevention, child welfare, deflection, and family support and stabilization. We want to be able to come into these families with these parents and these kids and provide a temporary place for them, so that they don't lose custody. So one thing about Safe Families is we don't have anything to do with DCSS or any organization like that. We are a ministry through churches and families who just want to love and support other families in our community. And so we want to be able to step in and love and care for their children while the parents can take care of whatever crisis they're going through or need they're having to find for their families. We want to provide a safe alternative to child welfare custody, and significantly reduce the number of children entering the foster care. Like I mentioned before, our founder noticed that there were some families who were in the system who maybe didn't necessarily need to be there. If they had the right resources in place, they wouldn't have been there. And so we are also in that aware that there are some instances where we do get families who reach out to us, and we have to be able to pray through that and think through that and know, like, okay, this is maybe out of our scope, and this is not right for our organization. But for the most part, it is families who maybe just need someone to take care of their children while they go to a doctor's appointment or to go to a job interview. Nobody wants to take their 3-year-old to a job interview. And so we want to be able to step in those moments, so that parents can reach their goals. Go ahead, next. Okay, so whom do we serve? We serve families who are affected by unemployment, homelessness, substance abuse, mental illness, domestic violence, medical crisis, and really a lot of other ones. And so the way that our program is set up is we have resources in the community who know about us and can do a referral to us. But we also ask the parents, because it is voluntarily, the parent is the one who has to reach out and ask for the support. We have a form on our Bethany page where they can go, and it's a basic form that just kind of gets basic information and maybe a basic idea of the support they're looking for. And then I would receive that, and then I would call the parents and get a little bit more information on what's going on with their family, what supports they need, how many children. And so we just kind of get that conversation going with the family and getting to know them. We support and serve parents and guardians. We have moms, we have single dads, we have grandparents. So anybody who has legal custody of a child. We also can provide support and services to youth in transition, and that will look a little bit different, but we have done it where some of the kids who maybe are 18 and older, because mostly the children that we do is 0 to 18, and once they're older than that and they're transitioning, we have families who have helped older as they're graduating out of high school and kind of making that transition into college and living on their own. And so once we get that referral, we make the connection with the family. Most of the children that we do serve, about 70% of them, are less than 6 years old. And that's not that we don't want to serve anybody older, it's just our volunteers, they are just families who also have children. And so we kind of notice that our families will take children up to about like their oldest, like whatever the age their oldest is, that's kind of where they tend to stay. Some of our parents they don't have teenagers, they're not comfortable with teenagers. And so it can be a little scary for them to take them on. So it's not that we don't want to serve them. It's some of our volunteers don't feel equipped to do it, and so they don't necessarily take on older ones, but we do have families who maybe specifically ask for teenagers, and so we're always looking for families who want to love on them and have them in their homes. And so we've also had teenage mothers and their children, and that would be always based on the host family. So that's what we call our families who want to take on children into their homes. We call them hostings when they take on children. And so we've had teen moms and their babies come in, families who maybe that's where their heart is. And so whenever we get one, we always like to know our families and their preferences. And so when we get a certain family or a certain need, we know which families to call and reach out to so that we can let them know, like, this is, a hosting request we've gotten. And so they will say yes or no. Our hostings can be anything from like overnight to a weekend, a week. We've had some that have been months long. It's really dependent on the need of the parent, whatever their goal is that they're working on during the hosting, and then also dependent on if our volunteers are available to host for a long period of time or a short period of time. So depending on the need, we can sometimes use different volunteers. So if we have one volunteer who's like, oh yeah, I can do it for a month, and then there's another family who say I can do it for a week, then sometimes we do have the children, but our goal is that they will stay with one family for the whole time, because our goal is always that they're building that relationship and connection with this family and the hosting family. Next slide. Okay, so this is a picture of what our circle of support is. And these are the different roles that play within a hosting through Safe Family. So in the middle, we have our family who is in crisis, and it is a voluntary ask. So the parent or guardian must have legal custody of the children, and they will be the ones asking us, coming to us. It's not an organization forcing them. No, it has to be the parent who is searching for it. Then we have the host family, and that is the family who is opening up their home and taking in the children. And again, like I said, these are families who are volunteers. They are not paid. We partner with different churches in Fresno. And so there are all families from different churches that we train and have them come in and just want to love on families during, a crisis or a need in their life. Then we have what we call, you can't see it very well, but it's our family coach. So our family coach is the person who connects with the hosting family and with the mom or dad or guardian that is asking for the hosting. So they will be connecting with the parents and working on their goals, whatever the parent has identified as a goal that they would like, whether it's to find a job, take care of their mental health, find housing, whatever it is, the family coach is there to help them and encourage them through that. Then they are also working and checking in with the host family to see how the children are doing, if they have any need, if they're needing any help with communication with mom. Because when these families come into our home, we always want the parents to be connected the whole time. They will have communication the whole time. They're the ones arranging schedules with the host families. And so we want that communication and connection to be happening. And so the family coach checks in on the host family and make sure that everything is going well, or if they need help with communication, or if they need help with the children and behaviors, then they are there to encourage the host families. And then we have family friends. So our family friends are our volunteers who provide encouragement and support to families in crisis and to host families. That can look like maybe the child goes to school in a different school district, and so they need to be given a ride from their host home to their schools in the morning. Or it can be, maybe the host families have something like an appointment and they need someone to kind of watch the kids for a few hours. So then they provide that kind of support as the host families need it. And then we have our volunteers who provide goods and services to our host families. So they check in with our host families and they're taking in one child or multiple children, and so they will provide a meal. They'll come in and provide dinner or breakfast for them. Or if the kids who they're bringing in maybe need clothes or diapers, it's something that would be like a tangible need at that time. They would check in with them. What are you needing? Are you needing more toilet paper, more paper towels? Because there is an increase in number in the family now. And so they will be checking in with them to see what are the things that they're needing, because we want our host families to be taken care of through this process also. So we are at the same time working with the parent and supporting them to reach their goals. And then we are also working with the host family so they have everything they need for the hosting to be successful. Next. Okay, so it is very important to us through this whole process that we are empowering our parents. We want to come alongside them and love on them and be able to be a resource for them in any capacity. But in that, we also want to tap into the skills that the parent is going to need once they go on their own and having to care for their children. And so sometimes it's, talking through hard times or just listening to them. Because parenting is hard for all of us, whether we're going through a crisis or not, it's difficult. And so for someone who maybe doesn't have someone that they can trust, we want to be able to be there for them and listen to them and then point out their strengths and work on skills. We want to encourage them to participate in decisions that affect their child. So we know that the parent and guardian is the person who knows the child the best. We do not come in knowing or thinking that we do. The parent does. And so if we ever have a question, if we ever have a need or the child is expressing the need, we want the parent involved in that, and we will always reach out to them. The communication between the host family and the parent is very important. We make sure that it's being kept up, that host families are sending updates or sending pictures, or we always tell mom, like, you can call the kids. And because our families, our host families also have their own schedules and their own routines, there is a planning that needs to happen. But that happens between them, and they know, okay, I can call in the evening, I can call in the morning before school. We want that connection with the children and the mom or dad the whole time. And then we want to recognize their skills and efforts to cope with difficult life circumstances. And through that, our family coaches are the ones who do that. But our host family, which is our goal, is also building a connection with mom or dad, that they are doing that also, that they are noticing and pointing out those things and how they're working hard, and encouraging them to continue with their goals. And so the parent part in all of this for our hostings is very important, and we make it a point that the parents nor the children feel like they are separated. We are just providing a safe place for a small moment so that mom or dad or guardian can work on their goals and get whatever needs they need so that their family can be healthy and safe again. And we become that part of their circle. So now we become people that they can reach out to, that they think of, like, I have a doctor's appointment. Maybe I can call them, and they can call them and say, hey, I have a doctor's appointment and this day. Are you available to watch my child? Or are you available to pick them up from school? And so that's the connections and resources we want to provide for them. We want to become a part of their long-term circle of support. It's your turn.
Thank you, Claudia. Next. All right. So I am just going to kind of go over our mission and our vision and kind of what Safe Families' core values are. Safe Families for Children, we support vulnerable children and create extended family-like support for parents facing crisis through a community devoted volunteers motivated by compassion to keep children safe and families together. We want to create a world where children are safe and families are transformed through radical, compassionate communities. So like Claudia was sharing, we are trying to provide a circle of support of families who want to be hospitable and compassionate to people who are going through hard times in our community. That is really the core of Safe Families. We at the Safe Families chapter here in Fresno, we have hosted over 360 times here since 2015. Our chapter was established in 2014. Safe Families as a whole nationally has been around for about 22 years. Locally, we have 43 volunteers. We have about 18 host families currently. Our chapter serves 4 counties. We serve Fresno County, Tulare County, Kings County, and Madera County. So we have a pretty large area to serve. So our volunteers definitely cannot serve that entire area. We focus mostly here in Fresno, and we are slowly growing in the Tulare County. So we have a lot of expansion to do, but this is our start right here. And we have a 95% return rate. So like Claudia said, we are a preventative program. We are trying to support parents and families before abuse and neglect happens. And that's where we want to step in, is in that vulnerable gap where families are at risk, but there is no evidence as why kids should be taken away. And so our program, we're always focused on reunification with a parent. Our parents and guardians do not lose their parental rights while they're in our program. And our focus is always to return children to their parents or guardians. But we do obviously have times where it's not safe or something is happening where we always prioritize the children's safety over anything. And so sometimes returning to parent is not a possibility, but that is always our goal. Safe Families, we connect with churches. That is where we find most of our volunteers. We partner with churches. We call them Safe Families churches. And that circle of support that Claudia shared, we try to build a circle of support and a volunteer base at the church because we want to partner with the church so that we can connect parents who are isolated with a faith community where Safe Families is participating for a time between our parents and our volunteers. And our hope is always that a real relationship would build between our volunteers and our families so that Safe Families can step away and the church can continue the real work of community support. So our core values, like shared in the video, are radical hospitality, intentional compassion, and disruptive generosity. And let's see, I gotta move this. All right. So the theology of biblical hospitality, which is kind of the foundation of Safe Families, is offering care to strangers, was a distinguished characteristic of the early church. And hospitality provides credibility to the church. A lot of Jesus's life and what is in the Bible points to hospitality, points for caring for strangers, caring for the widows and the children, and Safe Families really provides a structure on how the church can do that and how they can be connected to families in crisis and who are isolated. Hospitality to strangers was a fundamental expression of the gospel. And then the hospitality of the Bible is demanding, deliberate, and radical. Many times in the Bible, when there are stories of hospitality, it was very different from the way that the society functioned. Many of these people were pushed away, isolated, no one wanted to be around them, and Jesus came in and he disrupted all of that. And that's what we want to do. Here's our circle of support again. So we have Safe Families churches. They surround our circle of support, and we really want to connect our parents to our volunteers in a safe way. Like the name of this presentation is Circle of Support while being trauma informed. I do a lot of our training for our volunteers, and we focus on generational poverty, cultural differences, understanding what those, how those can play into family dynamics. And we really want to equip our volunteers. As someone who grew up in the church, being hospitable and caring for people is not uncommon. I think if you are part of the church, you already see being generous and compassionate and hospitable is already there. But what Safe Families does is we provide a structure for churches to do what they've been doing, being hospitable and caring for people in a structured and safe way, especially when we're bringing children into people's homes. We want to make sure that churches are safe, that our parents feel that they're putting their children in a safe home, especially when it's a stranger. And we also want to protect our volunteers. We want to equip them to understand the behaviors that might come up. A lot of the families that we work with, there is trauma in their past. And so we want to equip them as best as possible and provide them with supports. A lot of times people jump right into helping families without the knowledge of being trauma informed and understanding certain dynamics, certain cultures. And it can cause some issues, and it can also cause burnout for a family when you're doing this alone. And so we really want to provide multiple people for our parents to rely on, and also a circle of support for our volunteers to rely on one another. And I always tell our volunteers, we have a lot of volunteers who are like, well, I can do this. I don't need anybody else. And I always say that we not only want to give you support, but we want our volunteers to show our parents the importance of community and that you shouldn't be parenting alone. You should have people to rely on. You should be able to call someone who you think is safe and ask them to pick your child up from school. And so we want to model that to our parents. And so one way is by every parent who comes into our program, we connect them to all of these volunteers, every single one, because we want to show them that having a community that is safe is important. All right, the 5 protective factors. The 5 protective factors are, 5 things that if you incorporate this into your parenting, studies have shown that it brings stability and positive outcomes for your children. And the 5 protective factors is something that when training our volunteers, we focus on. We try to equip all of our volunteers to understand that parent resilience is super important, social connections for parents, knowledge of parenting and child development, concrete supports in times of need, knowing where to go when something happens, knowing the resources that are out there, and then social and emotional competence of children. So helping parents understand that as a parent, we are the ones who teach our kids how to talk to other people and how to act around other people, and also how to regulate our own emotions. And so we teach our volunteers that these are the 5 things that we want to help teach our parents, that we want to help them incorporate into their lives so that long-term they can provide the stability that their family needs and be what their children need. And then I also do parent cafes here in town. Currently, we host our parent cafes at City Center once a month. And our parent cafes are focused on the 5 protective factors, and where we teach parents how to incorporate these into their lives. And we also open it to all parents to come, and we have conversations about hard topics and just about family, their own experiences. And it's just a really safe place for parents to come and share their experience and rely on each other and build community in another way. And we encourage all of our Safe Families parents who come into our program to attend the parent cafes. All right. And another thing we incorporate into Safe Families is HOPE. So HOPE stands for Healthy Outcomes from Positive Experiences. This is a framework that started from a study in 2015 out of Wisconsin that started looking at what positive childhood experiences and how that affects the outcomes of children into adulthood. If you have ever heard of ACEs, I feel like ACEs is a more talked about term, talking about the trauma and the experiences in your childhood and how that has negative outcomes into adulthood. This study focuses on the positives, positive childhood experiences and how that affects you into adulthood. All right. And so this study on positive childhood experiences shows that it reduces the effect of ACEs, of adverse childhood experiences. And it it reduces the rate of mental health. Here we go. It protects adults and their mental health into adulthood. So the higher the positive childhood experiences test is just the same as ACEs test, where there's a series of questions, you answer them, and on a scale of 1 to 7, depending on how many you have, shows the outcome. And the more positive childhood experiences you have, the better reporting you have of having a healthy mental health into adulthood. It also had correlations with a better outcome financially with education and income into adulthood. And the core values of the HOPE framework are relationship, providing a safe and equitable stable environment, living situation, learning at home and in school, and then social and civic engagement. So to develop a sense of belonging and connectedness, and then emotional growth through playing and interacting with peers for self-awareness and self-regulation. So this is the framework for providing positive childhood experiences and what our organization wants to provide for the families who come into our program. I'll go back. And when talking about hope and positive childhood experiences, we have a lot of our volunteers who will take on a hosting and feel like at the end of the hosting that nothing happened, that they didn't there was no changes, the parent, didn't meet their goals, and we never hear from the family again. And I always encourage our volunteers to know that one, through this study and just my own experience with my own faith and this type of work, is that even the smallest amount of positive childhood experiences that we can provide can impact a child long-term regardless. A child who is in a home that is surrounded by disruption and inconsistency, maybe a little bit of unsafety, spending 2 weeks in a home where there isn't yelling or there isn't substance abuse and those types of things, where a parent asks you how you're feeling and how your day was, those things can impact a child greatly in their future. And so you never know what you are doing for a child or what seed you're planting in that family's life, even if we don't hear about what is happening later. And especially us being a faith-based organization, I just always think that even the smallest bit of impact that we can make on a family, God can use that for really great things. And so that's really the core of Safe Families, is that we want to provide positive experiences for children so that they can see what is possible for the future and that God can work in their lives. And yeah, so we want to provide equal attention to the positives. They allow us to provide unbiased, empathetic care. Like I said, whenever we can focus on the positive things instead of the negative for our parents and for our families, it helps us to have that empathy. Keeping our actions free from blame or judgment. Claudia kind of touched on that. We want to not be blaming or judging our parents as they come into our programs. We want to be uplifting them. We want to build trust between our parents and our volunteers and our staff, and then helping families and communities use their strengths to increase well-being. That is really what we want to focus on. All right, and then yeah, this is a little bit of our information. If anyone is interested in volunteering, or a parent wanting to enter into our program, this bethany.org/safefamilies is where you can do both of those. There's also videos and more information about our program that kind of goes deeper into what we do. And then this is our local information. So thank you. And I think we're going to open it to questions.
Thank you, Kori and Claudia. If anyone has questions, feel free to ask those questions in the chat or the Q&A. Let's see if any questions come in here. So I have a question about criteria for a family to qualify for services.
Do you want to take that, or you want me to take that, Claudia? I can go. Yeah, so the criteria is when we're working with a family, we want to make sure that there is no neglect or abuse happening currently with the family, and that there is no child welfare involvement already. If there is already a CPS case open, we will not we will not allow the parents to enter our program. And the criteria, we do have 3 goals that we ask each parent to provide for us, and that they are actively working towards those goals, like finding housing or a job or medical things. That they are working with our family coaches towards those goals. So depending on the situation, Claudia will always do an intake and kind of determine whether or not it's an appropriate case. Some of the things that we do not provide hostings for is when children have severe behaviors or medical needs, just because we don't train our volunteers in those aspects. We cannot support if there are severe behaviors or mental, or not mental, but severe behavioral issues and medical needs. Oh, you're on mute, Kim.
Sorry about that. Okay, so we have Angelica from the Tulare County Sheriff's Department, and she says she would like to explore the possibility of potential collaboration to assist their incarcerated population in the Tulare County jails.
Yeah, we have hosted for families where the parent is incarcerated, and we've worked with parents for months or a couple of months for that. The way that we work with parents for that is that we have to, all of our parents sign a power of attorney over to our volunteers. And so we have to be able to meet with the parent before they go into the county services and make sure that all of the paperwork is done and everything is set before they enter in. And even after, when a parent is transitioning out, we want to be able to support so that their families can stay together. So we would love to collaborate.
Okay, thank you, Kori. Martha works in hospice, and she's wondering, what does the support look like in a hospice situation? What type of support do you have for children and families that have lost or are losing their only parent?
Yes, so in that situation, we could support, but we would definitely want to work with the family to know what the long-term plan would be. We can help with short-term placements. Our families are not foster families, and we do not encourage adoption or anything like that. But if it were just needing care during that time, our volunteers are willing to support, but we would like there to be a plan in place on where ultimately the children would be going, determining on the situation.
All right, thank you. Next question is from Michelle, and she said, do volunteers get compensated to take care of the child, or do they get resources for the child like food, diapers, etc. when the child is with them? Or do they have to provide all that themselves?
Yes, so our volunteers do not get compensated. There is no compensation, which is why the circle of support is so important. Claudia shared the resource friends. So when a host family has a need, if it's diapers, formula, clothing, any tangible need, we've even had people provide beds, car seats, different things like that. We will send out a request to all of our volunteers. And so we have our resource friends who provide those needs. And that's also why our family coaches continue to check in with our host families to make sure that they are not solely responsible for these things. And we also are connected to Care Portal here in Fresno. And so when we do have a need, if formula, diapers, all of those things, we can send it out in Care Portal and get those fulfilled. So it is not up to our host families to have the financial burden of all of it. And that's why our circle of support is so important.
Okay, so Adela is asking, sorry, it went away. What languages are services provided in, and have you encountered any challenges with families who may be guarded exploring faith-based support?
Yes, we have available information in Spanish and English. We have a few Spanish-speaking host families. And if there were need for different languages, we have the ability to bring on a translator. And we do have some families that are hesitant when it comes to faith-based. And that is kind of where Safe Families gets to step in. We're kind of that bridge between the two. And our families feel more comfortable coming to a program like ours that has the, best practices and everything established for safety. And then we also tell our volunteers that to not evangelize to our families and allow their actions to be their evangelism. So to not be actively, trying to coerce families or kids into whatever religious practice that we have. And we also do not deny depending on religious practice either. And another thing about the compensation part, we specifically do not provide compensation to our volunteers because we do not want that to be a barrier in relationship with our parents who come into our program. Our hope is always that our parents and our volunteers would build a real relationship and that it would go forward, continue on after Safe Families involvement, which is why we don't want that to be an issue between building relationship.
Okay, Patricia says this program is amazing. Thank you for sharing this. I think I've got all the questions. Any last questions that we might have out there? So the information's on the screen. I'm sure you guys need to, support in many different areas. So if you're interested in reaching out, please reach out to Kori and Claudia, and they'd be happy to guide and direct you in any of the different areas that you can either volunteer, share the information, collaborate. They would really appreciate that. So thank you all for attending our Learn at Lunch today. We do have a date established in August, and we will send you out information. If you've already registered for the webinar, you're kind of like automatically registered. So you'll get all the updates when we have different presentations. We do them on a quarterly basis. And so you can expect that we will be back on August 27th to provide another informational webinar. So thank you again for Kori and Claudia, and thank you all for attending today. Have a great week.
Yeah, thank you.